I never thought I'd be the kind of guy working the graveyard shift at a roadside diner. But life has a funny way of putting you exactly where you don't want to be. 3 months ago, I was a college junior studying business management. Now I'm Tyler Hayes, college dropout, living in my childhood bedroom and serving coffee to truckers at 3 in the morning. The Crossroads Diner isn't much to look at. It's one of those places that time forgot, sitting at the literal intersection of Route 12 and Highway 47 in the middle of rural Pennsylvania, surrounded by nothing but dark woods and empty fields. The building itself is a relic from the 1960s, cracked red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floor, and a neon sign out front that buzzes like an angry wasp. During the day, it gets enough business from people passing through. At night, it's a different story. I should have known something was off during my interview. Rita Morrison, the day manager, is a woman in her early 60s, with grey hair pulled back in a tight bun and the kind of weathered face that suggests she's seen some things. She hired me on the spot, which should have been my first red flag. I had no restaurant experience. My resume was a joke, but when I mentioned I could work nights, her expression shifted from skeptical to something almost like relief. "Night shift," she repeated, studying me with sharp blue eyes. "You sure about that?" "It's not for everyone." "I'm sure," I said, because I needed the money and couldn't afford to be picky. I'm a night owl anyway. She was quiet for a long moment, drumming her fingers on the counter. Finally, she nodded. "All right, you start Thursday. Come in at 9 o'clock for training. Your regular shift will be 10 to 6. The training shift was straightforward enough. Rita showed me how to work the ancient register, where everything was kept, how to make the coffee that tasted like it had been filtered through old socks. The diner was simple, a long counter with 12 stools, 8 booths along the windows, a jukebox in the corner that looked older than me, and swinging doors that led to a small kitchen and a walk-in freezer. "Kitchen's closed after 10, Rita explained. "You'll just be serving coffee, pie, maybe heating up some soup. Nothing complicated." As the sun started to set and my official first shift approached, I noticed Rita growing more nervous. She kept glancing at the clock, wringing her hands in her apron. At 9:45, she went to her locker and pulled out a laminated card, slightly yellowed with age. "Tyler," she said, her voice serious in a way it hadn't been all evening. "I need you to read this. Really read it." I took the card. On it, written in faded typewriter font, were 5 rules. Rule 1. Never acknowledge the man in the yellow raincoat when he sits in booth 7. Rule 2. If someone orders the special, serve them water and tell them the kitchen is closed. Rule 3. Keep the jukebox playing between 2 and 4, no matter what. Rule 4. Do not go into the walk-in freezer after midnight. Rule 5. If all the lights go out, stand completely still until they come back on. I looked up at Rita, waiting for the punchline. Is this a hazing thing? Like, for new employees? No. Her voice was flat, serious. "Tyler, I need you to promise me you'll follow these rules. Exactly. Don't try to be clever. Don't try to figure them out. Just follow them." I laughed, uncomfortable now. "Come on, Rita." What's this really about? She grabbed my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. Promise me. The intensity in her eyes killed my laughter. Okay, I promise. She released me, stepping back. She looked older suddenly, tired. Keep that card with you. And Tyler, if something feels wrong, trust that feeling. Don't second guess yourself. Then she left, and I was alone in the Crossroads Diner for the first time. The first night was nothing. A few truckers came through around 11 o'clock, tired men who grunted their orders and left decent tips. A woman stopped in around 1 o'clock, some kind of night nurse based on her scrubs, and nursed a coffee while scrolling through her phone. By 3 o'clock, the place was empty. I wiped down counters, refilled napkin dispensers, and watched the headlights occasionally sweep past on the highway. At 6 o'clock, Rita arrived to relieve me. How was it? Quiet, I said. Normal. Something flickered across her face. Disappointment? Relief? I couldn't tell. Good. That's good. I went home, slept through the day, and came back that night. And the night after that. It was the third night when things started to get weird. The evening began normally enough. A couple of truckers, a guy who might have been a traveling salesman, someone's grandmother driving through the night to see her grandkids. Standard stuff. I'd almost forgotten about the laminated card in my pocket. At 1:30, I was behind the counter, wiping down the coffee maker. When I heard the door chime, I looked up. A man stood in the doorway, wearing a yellow raincoat. Not a light windbreaker, a heavy, old-fashioned raincoat, the kind fishermen wear. It gleamed wetly under the fluorescent lights, water dripping steadily onto the checkered floor. The thing was, it wasn't raining outside. Hadn't rained in 3 days. The man didn't look at me, didn't look at anything, really. He walked with a strange gliding gait directly to booth 7, the one in the far corner, and sat down. Water pooled around his feet, spreading out across the vinyl seat. My hand went automatically to the laminated card in my pocket. Rule 1. Never acknowledge the man in the yellow raincoat when he sits in booth 7. I felt ridiculous. This was clearly just some guy, probably confused, maybe drunk. I should go take his order. But Rita's voice echoed in my head. Don't try to be clever, just follow them. So I didn't approach him. A trucker at the counter wanted a refill. I poured it, making small talk, hyper-aware of the man in booth 7 in my peripheral vision. He sat completely still, hands flat on the table. I couldn't see his face clearly from this angle. The hood of the raincoat shadowed it. The trucker left. I busied myself with wiping down the counter, cleaning the milkshake machine, anything to look occupied. Twice, I almost walked over to booth 7. Twice, I stopped myself. The man sat there for 2 hours. He never moved, never ordered, never looked around, just sat with water dripping steadily from his coat, the pool around him growing larger. At 3:30, I turned away to refill the coffee maker. When I looked back, booth 7 was empty. I stood there, pot in hand, staring. Then I walked over slowly. The booth was bone dry. No water on the floor, no water on the seat. I ran my hand over the vinyl, completely dry. I checked the front door, locked like I'd locked it at 2 o'clock when the last customer left. My hands were shaking as I made myself a cup of coffee, I pulled out the laminated card and read Rule 1 again. Never acknowledge the man in the yellow raincoat when he sits in booth 7. Not if, when. Like it was expected. Like it happened regularly. I didn't sleep well that day. The 4th night, I kept glancing at booth 7. It stayed empty. By the 5th night, I'd almost convinced myself I'd been experiencing some kind of sleep deprivation hallucination. Then Rule 2 happened. It was just past midnight. The diner was empty except for me, which wasn't unusual for a Tuesday. I was reading a paperback I'd brought from home, some thriller that wasn't holding my attention, when the door chimed. A woman walked in. She was beautiful in a way that made my breath catch. Dark hair, sharp cheekbones, wearing a black dress that seemed too elegant for a roadside diner. She moved to the counter and sat down, her movements fluid, almost too smooth. "Evening," I said, putting down my book. "What can I get you?" She smiled. Her teeth were very white. "I'll have the special." My hand froze halfway to the coffee pot. Rule 2. If someone orders the special, serve them water and tell them the kitchen is closed. The kitchen's closed, I said. "I can get you coffee, pie, some soup." "The special," she repeated. Her voice had a strange quality to it, like wind blowing through a tunnel. "I've heard it's very good here." I grabbed a glass with trembling hands and filled it with water from the tap. Set it in front of her. "Kitchen's closed. I'm sorry." She stared at me for a long moment. Her eyes were dark. So dark I couldn't see where the pupil ended and the iris began. That smile never wavered. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. "Yes," I whispered. She picked up the water glass, brought it to her lips, and drank the entire thing in one continuous gulp, her throat working steadily, never breaking eye contact with me. When she set the glass down, it was empty. "Good boy," she whispered. She reached into a small purse and pulled out a $100 bill, setting it on the counter. Then she stood and walked out, her heels clicking on the tile floor. I stared at the money. $100 for a glass of water. I picked it up carefully. The bill crumbled in my hands, disintegrating into ash that sifted between my fingers and scattered across the counter. I spent the rest of the shift scrubbing my hands, trying to get the feeling of that ash off my skin. When Rita came in at 6 o'clock, she took one look at my face and sighed. "Which rule?" "2," I said hoarsely. She nodded like she'd expected this. "You followed it?" "Yes." "Good." She squeezed my shoulder. "You're doing good, Tyler." "Rita, what the hell is going on here?" "Not now," she said gently. "Not during the day. It's not the right time. Just keep following the rules." By night 7, I was a wreck. I'd tried to research the diner online, but there was nothing unusual. Just a few reviews mentioning good pie and surly service. I'd driven by during the day once, circling the building. It looked completely normal, just a tired old diner at a crossroads. But at night, it was something else. I'd started preparing obsessively for Rule 3. Before my shift, I'd stop at a convenience store and buy $20 in quarters. At 1:45, I'd go to the jukebox and pump it full of coins, selecting every song I could, making sure it would play continuously through the 2 to 4 window. That seventh night, I was especially careful. I loaded up the jukebox at 150, selected 30 songs, everything from Johnny Cash to Patsy Cline, and made sure the volume was turned up. At exactly 2 o'clock, Crazy started playing, Patsy Cline's voice filling the empty diner. That's when I heard the other sounds. Underneath the music, soft at first, then growing louder. Whispers, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, coming from the walls, scratching sounds like fingernails on wood. I turned up the jukebox volume. The whispers got louder, competing with Patsy Cline. They sounded angry now, urgent. I couldn't make out individual words, but the tone was clear. They wanted something. They wanted in. Let us in. So cold. Please, please, please. I backed away from the jukebox, my heart hammering. The scratching sounds intensified. I could see the windows now, and there were marks appearing on them from the outside, like something was dragging claws across the glass. At 2:45, the jukebox started skipping. The same 3 seconds of I Fall to Pieces played over and over and over. The whispers surged, almost drowning out the music. I ran to the jukebox, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the quarters in. I fed it more coins, frantically selected another song. Ring of Fire started up, and the moment it did, the whispers cut off. Just like that. Silence, except for Johnny Cash. The scratching stopped. I stood there, breathing hard, staring at the windows. In the reflection, I could see long gouges in the glass, like something with very large claws had tried to get in. At exactly 4 o'clock, the last song ended. I didn't put any more money in. The diner settled into its normal nighttime quiet. The only sound, the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing on the highway. I walked to the windows and examined them carefully. The scratches were gone, but I'd seen them. I knew I had. I made it to night 10 before I broke a rule. It was hot that night, unusually warm for early October, and the diner's ancient air conditioning system was struggling. I'd had a customer around 11 o'clock, a teenager who'd wanted a milkshake, and I'd used up the last of the ice cream. At 12:30, I stood in front of the walk-in freezer. Rule 4. Do not go into the walk-in freezer after midnight. I needed more ice cream. There was a whole box in there. I'd seen Rita stock it just yesterday. And this rule was the most arbitrary one, right? What could possibly be dangerous about a freezer? I put my hand on the handle. I should have walked away. Should have told any late-night customers that we were out of ice cream. Should have remembered Rita's face when she'd made me promise to follow the rules. But I was tired and hot, and I'd convinced myself over the past 10 days that there had to be logical explanations for everything. The man in the yellow raincoat was just a drunk. The woman was just strange. The sounds during the jukebox hours were old buildings settling. I opened the freezer door. The first thing I noticed was the size. The freezer stretched back into darkness, way beyond where the back wall of the diner should have been. It was impossibly deep, the shelves extending into a space that couldn't physically exist. The second thing I noticed was the cold. Not normal freezer cold. This was Arctic, bone deep, the kind of cold that burns. Frost covered everything, thick and white, and my breath came out in great plumes. The third thing I noticed were the shapes hanging from hooks in the back, At first, I thought they were sides of beef, large man-sized shapes wrapped in something translucent. No, wait, not wrapped. I squinted into the darkness. They were people, frozen people, hanging from meat hooks, their eyes open and glazed with frost. There were 5 of them that I could see, maybe more further back in the darkness. They were positioned like slaughtered animals, and the frost made their skin grey and lifeless. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't process what I was seeing. Then I noticed the one hanging closest to me. He looked exactly like me. Same height, same build, same face. But this version of me was frozen solid, eyes open and staring, mouth open in a silent scream. He was wearing the same uniform I had on, black polo, black pants, white apron. From somewhere in the depths of the freezer, I heard movement. Something was coming toward me from the back, moving through that impossible space. I heard the scrape of something heavy being dragged, the creak of metal, a sound that might have been breathing. I stumbled backward, slamming the freezer door shut. Immediately, there was pounding from inside. Heavy, rhythmic thuds, like someone throwing themselves against the door. Muffled screaming, multiple voices, all shouting at once. The door handle shook violently. I backed away, nearly tripping over my own feet, and ran to the bathroom. I made it to the toilet just in time to throw up the dinner I'd eaten before my shift. The pounding continued for 5 minutes before going silent. At 3 o'clock, I called Rita. My hands shook so badly I could barely dial. She answered on the second ring, her voice alert despite the hour. "Tyler? What happened?" "I looked," I whispered. I opened the freezer. I saw Rita. I saw. "I'm coming in," she said. "Don't go back to the freezer. Don't look at it. Just stay in the front. Make coffee. I'll be there in 45 minutes. She hung up. I made coffee, drank 3 cups. At 3:33, a time I'd started noticing appeared a lot on the clock. I heard the scratching start on the windows again, even though it wasn't during the jukebox hours. Rita arrived at 4 o'clock exactly, parking her old Toyota in the lot and hurrying inside. She looked older than usual, tired, and when she saw my face, she sighed deeply. "Come on," she said. "I'll make us fresh coffee. The stuff you made looks like mud." We sat at the counter together, the diner empty around us, and she told me the truth. "The Crossroads Diner sits on a thin place," she began, stirring sugar into her coffee. "Do you know what that means?" I shook my head. "It's a place where the boundary between worlds is weak, thin. Things can cross over more easily here." She took a sip, grimaced. "This intersection, Route 12 and Highway 47, it wasn't always a crossroads. Used to be a town here, small place called Cedar Hollow. About 50 years ago, there was a massive flood. Heavy rains, the creek overflowed, and the whole town was swept away in the middle of the night. 47 people died." I wrapped my hands around my coffee mug, trying to get warm. "They found most of the bodies downstream," Rita continued. "But some were never recovered. The town was abandoned after that, condemned. A few years later, someone bought the land cheap and built this diner right at the center of where the town used to be, right where the old general store stood." "The man in the yellow raincoat," I said quietly. She nodded. Thomas Fletcher ran the general store. His body was never found. Neither were 6 others. They're still here, Tyler, still trying to come back. And the woman, the one who wanted the special. Rita's expression darkened. She's not from the flood. She's older, much older. This land was thin even before Cedar Hollow was built. The Native Americans who lived here originally, they knew. They avoided this place, considered it cursed. She set down her mug. The special. That's what they want. A life, a body, a soul, whatever you want to call it. My throat was dry. And the freezer, that's where they keep the ones who didn't follow the rules, she said softly. The ones who broke the pact. What pact? Rita looked at me with those sharp blue eyes. When the diner was built, someone, I don't know who, it was before my time, made a deal. The things here, they need attention. They need acknowledgement. They feed on fear, on recognition, on being seen. But they also need boundaries. The rules create those boundaries. As long as we follow them, as long as we maintain the ritual, they stay contained. Mostly. They push at the edges, she admitted, test the boundaries. But they can't break through as long as someone is here, following the rules, keeping up the barrier. I thought about the version of me hanging in the freezer. How long have you been doing this? 30 years, she said, since I was your age. The previous night shift worker, he trained me, just like I'm training you. And before him, someone else. It goes back to when the diner first opened. Why? I asked. Why not just burn the place down? Destroy it? Can't, Rita said simply. This is a thin place, Tyler. The diner didn't create it. It just occupies it. If the diner goes away, there's nothing containing them at all. At least this way, there's a structure. Rules, boundaries. I wanted to quit right then. Wanted to walk out, drive away, never come back. I can't force you to stay, Rita said, reading my mind. But Tyler, you opened the freezer. You saw inside. You're connected now. The rules will follow you wherever you go. What does that mean? It means booth 7 will always be in the corner of your eye. The woman in black will find you no matter where you work. The whispers will start at 2 o'clock, wherever you are. She reached across and took my hand. I'm sorry. I should have watched you more carefully, should have made sure you didn't break any rules. But now you're tied to this place. You can leave, but it won't leave you. I felt cold all over. So my choices are work here or be haunted for the rest of my life. Or stay here and learn to live with it, she said. It's not so bad once you adjust. The pay is decent, and you'll be keeping something contained that needs to be contained. I didn't go back that night. I called in sick, spent the day researching thin places and hauntings and crossroads legends. Found nothing that helped. But at 9 o'clock that night, as I was sitting in my childhood bedroom, I heard whispering coming from the walls. At 2 o'clock, it got louder. At 3:33, I looked out my window and saw a figure in a yellow raincoat standing in my front yard. I drove to the diner and finished my shift. That was a month ago. I've settled into a routine now. I arrive at 9:45, help Rita close out the day shift. At 10 o'clock, she leaves, and I'm alone. I've learned the rhythms of the place, the patterns. The man in the yellow raincoat comes every 3 or 4 nights, I never look at him directly. Sometimes he sits for hours. Sometimes just minutes. I've gotten good at pretending booth 7 doesn't exist. Someone orders the special about once a week. It's never the same person twice. They always look slightly wrong. Too beautiful, too symmetrical. Something off about their eyes or the way they move. I serve them water. They leave money that turns to ash or leaves, or once disturbingly, dead moths. The jukebox is always full of quarters now. I keep a coffee can full of them behind the counter. At 1:55, I start feeding the machine. I've learned which songs are longest, which ones the whispers seem to hate most. Rock and roll works better than country. The Beach Boys make them scream. I never go near the freezer after midnight. During the day, Rita stocks it. At night, I pretend it doesn't exist. And once a week, usually on Wednesday nights when things are slowest, all the lights go out. I stand completely still when it happens. I've learned not to panic. I close my eyes, count to 60, and wait. The first time it happened after I broke Rule 4, I felt them. Cold fingers brushing my neck, breath on my face, something pressed up against my back, bodies surrounding me in the dark. They whispered things I try not to remember. We know you looked. We know you saw. You're already half ours. But I stood still. I followed Rule 5 perfectly. When the lights came back on, the diner was full. Every booth, every stool occupied by figures in various states of decay. Some just pale and wet, others worse. They were all staring at me. I kept standing still, barely breathing. One by one, they flickered out of existence like television static. There and then not there, until I was alone again. Rita says I'm doing well. She started leaving early some nights, confident I can handle things. She seems lighter now, less burdened, and I understand why. She's passing the weight to me, bit by bit. Last week, she told me the diner needed a day shift worker, someone to handle the lunch rush, give her a break. This morning, she brought in a kid named Brian. He's 22, just graduated college with a degree in hospitality management. Excited about restaurant work, eager to learn. I watched Rita train him, showing him the register, the coffee maker, where we keep the supplies. Watched him get more confident as the day went on. At the end of his training shift, I pulled out a laminated card from my pocket, slightly yellowed with age. The typewriter font faded, but still readable. Brian, I said, and my voice sounded like Rita's used to sound, serious, weighted. I need you to read this. Really read it. He took the card, his expression curious. I watched his face change as he read the 5 rules. Watched the smile fade. Is this a joke? He asked, laughing nervously. I didn't smile back. Couldn't remember the last time I genuinely smiled. No, I said. These are important. You need to follow them exactly. Don't try to be clever. Don't try to figure them out. Just follow them. Come on, man. What's this really about? I gripped his shoulder the way Rita used to grip mine. Promise me. Something in my eyes must have convinced him. Okay, I promise. Keep that card with you, I told him, and Brian. If something feels wrong, trust that feeling. Don't second guess yourself. He left, looking unsettled, glancing back at me once before getting in his car. Rita stood beside me as we watched him drive away. "You sounded just like me," she said softly. "Yeah." I caught my reflection in the window. For just a moment, I looked older, tired, exactly like Rita did that first night she handed me the rules. I guess I did. That night, I took my usual position behind the counter, made coffee, loaded up the jukebox at 1:55. At 2 o'clock, when the whispers started, I didn't flinch. Outside, a figure in a yellow raincoat walked past the window. I didn't look up. I never look up anymore. The Crossroads Diner sits at the intersection of Route 12 and Highway 47, in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. We're open 24 hours. The coffee is not great, but the pie is decent. And if you stop by during the night shift, maybe you'll see me. I'm Tyler, and I've worked here for about 2 months now. Just remember, if you visit and you see a man in a yellow raincoat sitting in booth 7, do me a favor. Don't acknowledge him. Don't even look. And whatever you do, don't order the special. Trust me on this. I'm still learning the rules myself, but I'm getting better at following them. I have to. Because the thing about thin places is that they don't let go easily. And neither does the Crossroads Diner. Rita says after a few years, you stop noticing the weird things. They just become part of your routine, as normal as brewing coffee or wiping down tables. I'm not there yet, but I will be. The diner needs someone on the night shift after all. It always has, and something tells me it always will.